There's a threshold often happens with a lot of generative models where it goes from interesting to, say, researchers, to interesting to kind of people around the field, and then at some point it breaks through the kind of public consciousness. And I think in the last year or so, or even the last 6 months, a similar thing has happened with music. I'm Conor. I'm a co-founder at Udio. Udio is a music generation service where users can use generative AI as part of like a music creation workflow. I think people have a really special relationship with music. It's everywhere at all times. Like it's in the background when you're at a restaurant or cafe, you're listening to your headphones when you're going to work in the morning. It's a mood thing. It really has like an emotional resonance with people. The promise of generative modeling is that a lot of this can be far more abundant than it ever was before. It's a more engaging, creative thing. It's a super visceral thing to create something that like a holistic piece of music, listen to it and go, wow, that's incredible. Like I can, it's a lot easier for me to curate and express my taste. That's something I personally find compelling, and I believe that other people do as well. We kind of want to bring that ease of creation just as a super fun, creative thing as part of a workflow for people. So I think, yeah, that's why specifically music. There's a threshold often happens with a lot of generative models where it goes from interesting to, say, researchers, to interesting to kind of people around the field, and then at some point it breaks through the kind of public consciousness. And we saw a similar thing happen with language models and image models over the last couple of years. And I think in the last year or so, or even the last 6 months, a similar thing has happened with music. You can kind of listen to something and say, does this give me the same feeling that listening to music does? Or does this sound like a novelty? Does this sound like something which I think, oh, that's nice, but it's not quite there yet? Is it something that I could take some of these tracks and actually I'd be interested in using them in a professional production, using parts of them, or just something I'd like to listen to, in and of its own kind of right? The ultimate test for a lot of these models is, do people actually find them useful? Like in whatever capacity it is, do I genuinely find this kind of engaging or compelling? And that's the ultimate test of, I think, any generative model is like, does it actually meet the threshold? And you can, it's quite a nebulous thing, but it's also quite concrete in that it's there or it's not, you know what I mean? It's of a certain threshold or it's not. And so for some reason, the thing that I have or that I've done for, I don't know, a very long time now ends up being a song about socks. So, I end up doing a song about socks, and I end up just doing everything auto-generated to see how it kind of ends up. That can be a useful, basically, grounding tool for me. So I end up just doing this and seeing what genres and the model ends up suggesting. And additionally, kind of what lyrics it decides to choose, how it arranges them, etc. So that's what I go with here. Select 32-second clip, auto-generated lyrics, and manual mode off. And then we just hit enter. And those tracks are creating. Live demos can be fun, so let's see what happens.
Soft and warm in a perfect way. Just remember them dear socks we wore today.
And so that, to me, that sounds like the tags that generated for that is rock, psychedelic rock, progressive rock. That's roughly within genre. It sounds like a 70s or kind of 80s vibe. And yeah, it's about socks, And so to me, like this is a good check that like, systems are working, everything is kind of put together. If I'm using it kind of more personally, I can drill down more deeply. But like this kind of sets the tone for where I think we're at. If everything is kind of working correctly, it can also be nice as a starting point because you're like, I go on and I'm sure exactly what genres I want to focus on. And, just kind of purely coincidentally, both of these kind of are, the first one is psychedelic rock, the second one is psychedelia, psychedelic pop. These can be good starting points as well, because you hear a sound and you're like, oh, I want to explore this more. But now I want to, change my lyrics. I want a more expansive thing. I want to explore this a bit more. But even, a kind of silly prompt like this is a really good starting point, an audio cue. In hip hop, there's a whole Kendrick Drake thing that's going on. And I logged onto Twitter one day and there's this BBL Drizzy song that was kind of everywhere, did some digging, and within an hour I had figured out it actually had originated with us. That was a real instance of complete validation, because it was, the original clip itself had gone kind of so viral. It had been sampled by Metro Boomin, like top producer in the world. So he heard that and thought, okay, there's something here to work with. And then from that point onwards, there was this kind of creative explosion, basically, of people remixing it, people like doing verses over it, instrumental versions like sax solos, guitar solos on top. And since actually that song has actually appeared on an album, on Sexy Red's latest album, as a sample in a track, and Drake actually has a verse on top of that. It's crazy, right? Like this is a really insane thing, and I think it's kind of total validation that the model can actually provide that level of kind of creative output and just enable moments like that. And I think that's super validating for us. I think what we acknowledge is that we probably have different types of users, like distinctly different types of users. At the very top being, does someone in a studio who's making an album, like at the very top level, do they find it useful to use our tool? At the other end of the scale, should I say, is maybe someone on their phone who wants, in a minute, they want just a funny song to send to their friend. And those are two very different experiences, and kind of somewhat similar to, the kind of output you can get from just an instrument in general. Like someone can have a guitar at home that they play, just to have fun from time to time. It's like a totally personal thing. It's not anything necessarily serious. It's just a way to express yourself with kind of musically. And the same way someone can take that same guitar and a professional can take it into a studio and make it part of, something fantastic. We'd like the technology to basically enable all ends of all parts of that spectrum. We do actually want to serve, like we acknowledge that we have this different kind of types of users, and we would actually like to serve all of them if possible.